Hi, so I'm Sam Rasmussen, and I worked with both Peter and Scott, and this is my presentation of our Innovation Amphitheater funnel. So the problem that we identified is there's lack of access to home charging, which prevents electric vehicle adoption. The numbers say that Americans do not have access to home charging, 30% of them, and that 9.7% of Americans have access to public charging within a quarter mile of their home, which means that the majority of people clearly do not have access to this. So in order for EV adoption to actually go forward, we need to overcome this lack of infrastructure. So the solution that we've come up with is a cheap, user-friendly level 2 charger for people who own electric vehicles. And what level 2 means is that it's a mid-tier level in terms of the amount of energy that it takes and the speed and cost with which it can charge an electric vehicle. And we think that these chargers can be monetized to incentivize landlords, local governments to install them in public places or in residences that house multiple people. So how we got from the process to problem. We started with the idea that people aren't buying electric vehicles, and we reached out and did more research to define the fact that people are doing, or rather not doing this because of the lack of charging stations. And so we converged sort of toward the root of the problem, that we needed more and better infrastructure for home charging. So at first we found the problem, we started divergently ideating. So we had everyone come up with a bunch of different potential solutions, and we came up with around 8 of them. And as you can see, we filtered them by a set of criteria based off purchase cost, installation cost, revenue potential, technical feasibility, resource availability, and regulatory concerns. And we found that 4 of our ideas had really good scores. And while we didn't ultimately pick the one that had the highest score, we still picked one with one of the high scores that was really important to us. So this research required us to do some research into the issue so that we could fairly evaluate each idea. And based on these total ratings, we picked the one that we did. And so competition in the public level 2 sector was evaluated, and we found that it is a niche that would have a low cost, high volume, because we can sell it both to individual homeowners as well as people that own public spaces or landlords that own places that a lot of other people will be renting from. So our implementation plan for this idea is to find internet-enabled level 2 charger stations that we can purchase and rebrand. There are a lot of different ones out there that we could take and put our own label on and then sell well below the charge point cost, as $350 is notably less than the over $5,000 alternative. And we also want to create an open charge point protocol. And this would enable users to access payment and processing through an app, which they could use both at the home chargers, but also they could adapt to work with other charging station models that may be out and about in the community. And we'll also sell them to public venues that are high density, as we've mentioned before, encourage app growth through cross promotion. So for public charging, we could give people a credit toward the charging, so that way they're more inclined to purchase the item, and then also more inclined to use the infrastructure that already exists and therefore buy electric vehicles. And we could also process public charging at a 10% commission on a typical rate of $1.50 per hour plus parking fees. And while this may not be the highest value per hour, it still nets out pretty well, because you can make $1 million by selling one thing for $1 million or several millions of other things for well less than that. And we wanted to go that route because we think that there's a lot of volume potential for this product. So on the whole, Dr. Pollard, this class has been really amazing. The process was super interesting at both levels. I liked the small scale ideation where we had the sheets of paper that we passed around. We all added to each other's ideas and were somehow able to come up with hundreds of ideas in a very short amount of time, but also the large scale where we could look at problems we see affecting the community, and we could turn that into potentially a company that any one of us could actually start for real. About as far as thoughts on innovation go, I kind of learned 2 contrasting messages. The first being, don't be a perfectionist. I tend to look for the perfect idea, the perfect solution, and Obviously, that's not the best way to find a solution because you're going to limit yourself greatly. But also at the same time, because creativity can be so rapid, you don't need to settle for anything. So if something is, I guess you don't need to start a business with something just because you have a good idea. Or a less than good idea, you can wait around for a better idea that you actually want to latch onto. In the future, a lot of this has to do with my interaction with others. Anyone can be creative, so my goal is to encourage ideation rather than squash it, because I like to poke holes in ideas that people have and sort of an effort to strengthen them, but doing so can be harmful, especially to someone's creativity. So my learning not to do that is a big takeaway for me. I can incorporate this learning into my degree. While I don't have a whole lot of time left in my degree, as far as marketing goes, I can take these innovative concepts and try to do something different when I'm marketing. And in my capstone class, I can really come up with good ideas that are going to frame marketing in a different way and sort of challenge expectations while meeting them at the same time. And that sort of extends into my career as well, especially if I focus on my sustainability minor, as a lot of innovation is going to be necessary to make sustainable concepts lasting and to make them work in a real life context. And then as far as life is concerned, you can really seek innovation from any source. Whatever problem I'm having, whatever problem I'm seeing others have, I can sort of use that insight in order to innovate and maybe even start a business one day. And the only other thing I want to share is a thank you. I'm so glad that you were my professor last quarter, that I was able to be in this sprint. You've been amazing as a professor. And while I don't have room in my schedule to have any other classes with you, it's really been a pleasure to be in your classes. So thank you.